I quit my job 2 weeks before the first lockdown. And I was like, oh my God, did I do something really stupid here?
Welcome to the Illinois Business Playbook. We sit down with people building real impact in their communities and unpack the vision behind their work. If you care about real stories and real connection, you're in the right place. Let's make some noise.
Hey, all right. Welcome to the Illinois Business Playbook. I'm here with Joedy from Marty Joe. Man, sorry about that, Joedy. Marty Joe Discount. Joedy, how you doing today?
I'm all right. That's fine. It's Marty Joe, Martejo, Martejo.
I love it. Let's kind of talk about what you're doing here. So what made you decide to start your business? Let's talk about your business. And I think it's pretty easy to figure out why you've named your business what you've named it. But let's get this out here, man. What made you start it? Talk about it. Let's hear.
Okay. So my business started during COVID, and it was funny because there was the first lockdown that happened in Illinois. We actually I worked for a company that was like a subsidy up, kind of like where I originally came from, because I used to work for a major communications company, and I was able to benefit from a severance back in 2017. So basically what happened was, after that I kind of took some time off, and then basically right before COVID hit, I was in another job, and I basically said to myself, one day I woke up and I said, you know what, corporate world's not for me anymore. I think I need to see what's going on with being my own person, getting my own money and working for myself. And basically what happened was I quit my job 2 weeks before the first lockdown. It was actually really scary because I quit my job, and then all of a sudden lockdown happened, and I was like, oh my God, did I do something really stupid here? And basically what I started my garage selling vintage, because vintage is kind of like one of my passions. And basically I just kind of rolled with that for a little while, and listing stuff on eBay, shipping it out. So basically what happened was, the way that this all kind of evolved was, I would go, to the estate sales and, the thrift stores, and I would pick out the items that I, would like to have for myself. But then I, obviously got to sell it. I wasn't using my phone to look stuff up, but this is all like my personal skill. So basically I had to figure out something, because, COVID was going on. A lot of people were, getting the YouTube videos, understanding that reselling's out there, getting into it. And every time I show up at like a thrift store or a estate sale, I would see other people with their phones looking stuff up. So I said, you know what, this isn't for me. Let's find a new way of getting inventory. And then I actually started getting into liquidation. So I got my first pallet, and it was a success. And then one pallet turned into two, and then two turned into three. And then next thing you know it, basically from February till May, I was in my garage. And then one day I woke up, I said, I need some square foot. So I rented a space, and 900 square feet. And kind of fast forward, right before we opened the store, we were up to like about 13,000 square feet. So wow. I started figuring it out. At one point I'm like, I need employees. I started making enough where I can, hire somebody. I invested in my business 100% the first 2 years, actually. I was in a position where every penny that went in could get returned into inventory. And so that's what I did. And basically by the time we opened the store, September 23, we had enough inventory to kind of get us started. And then it kind of just blew up from there. I mean, it turned into an animal. At one point we had 18 employees.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we had our Facebook group went pretty big. We started that, and then that's really kind of what got us in the beginning. But now we're kind of into a position now where we might be losing our building. So we actually shut down again for the second time. Kind of like a backstory, when we found out that we might have another company come take this building, we actually had to liquidate last November. So November 15th, we liquidated the store, and then we kind of shut down. We shut down December, half of January, and then in January, it started getting delayed with the takeover. And I said to myself, you know what, this is not sustainable. My bank is draining. We are not getting anywhere. So I just made the decision, hey, I'm going to start the store back up. And this time around, we weren't open 6 days a week. We were open 3.
Okay.
But then what happened? We had to shut down again, just because now we're going to switch everything to online auction. So a lot of story behind this, because I'm actually, in the meantime, I've been building my own app, so I don't have to rely on another platform.
Nice.
I think I'm 32 days into it straight, but I think I got almost 2 months into the build, and then I'm at least 200 hours into it. So it's been an animal. It's been an animal for the journey. So that's kind of like where I'm at right now.
American Pickers, is that a show that you have any interest in?
Yeah, yeah. So that was kind of like the thing, when all the YouTube channels came out, and then there was that show, the Storage Wars,
George Wars, sure.
Pawn Stars, all that. That's kind of like my fun time. Like when I'm watching that, I can relate to that a lot. And there's been instances where I've came across locations, garage sales that was hoarder's dream, and I've come out with some pretty cool stuff before.
That's
But
awesome.
that's mostly my secret stash now. It's not really my stuff I'm selling.
Okay. Now you'd mentioned Facebook groups. What other ways? I mean, you're at a situation right now where you're continually having to adapt to what's happening, right? And it really shows. Again, I can relate to you as far as being in the corporate world and then deciding to step aside and then deciding to work for I work for myself and my wife. But it's a lot easier to answer to my wife than it was to answer to some of the corporate pressures I was dealing with. But you'd referenced Facebook groups. What other ways are you trying to get out that promotional side? Hopefully this will help you out, by the way, Joedy. But what other ways are you really trying to get the word out as far as all the cool stuff that you're doing there?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing in the beginning was the value that you offer is the main thing that I would say that helped me out a lot. My customers are my biggest advocate.
Okay.
So a lot of my customers weren't able to get rehabs unless they came to my store. I used to sell vanities. I used to sell, kitchen cabinets, appliances. So when somebody walks into my store and then they saved thousands of dollars, they're telling their friends. So that was like a
Nice.
huge thing.
Sure.
Now it's not so much because I can't really offer that big value, but I mean, our auction platform is doing really well with gaining momentum with people. But I would
Okay.
say Facebook ads is a huge thing. Not boosting, but Facebook ads, and then basically making sure. I mean, in the back then it was like your SEO, your computer or your website, making sure all those keywords are all there. It's basically how many places can you hit with that. But I mean, nowadays there's so many algorithm hits that you can do, and I'm still working on them. I mean, it's every day it's changing.
So you've gone through a lot, and I think your story is going to be a really important one of survival. A really important story of being able to deal with the obstacles that come your way. But how have you been able to kind of try to be as proactive as you possibly can be to some of the changes and dynamics of your business?
So the changes have been really, really hard because the inventory's changed, right? When I started, inventory was cheap. Not cheap, but like, cheaper. And the inventory was cleaner. Now it's more processing. Now there's a lot more other heavy hitters in the game. A lot of corporations getting into liquidation. A lot of the AI tools are helping people see through any industry. I mean, obviously, but this industry the most because you have your inventory that you need to know like before you buy it. What's the return rate on your margins. But the biggest thing for me is the changes. I mean, I've probably had so many changes I can't even remember. But the change happens. You gotta like you said, be proactive. You got to watch. Like for me, it's capital. When the capital stops coming in as fast, that's a red flag right there. What's going on? What's this month doing that the last month was doing differently? I mean, in this industry, it's actually like a day by day play. I would say, and that's a lot to keep you on your feet. I can tell you that.
Your story is a story of resilience. Where do you think that came from? Where do you think that idea sort of came from? That you believe in this, you're passionate about this, you want this to work, you're willing to kind of alter things along the way to still try to get the best results possible. Where does that stem from? Did you have a role model that sort of taught you that? Did you see other folks doing so? Or where do you think that, trust me when I say, and I know you know this, Joedy, as well, bad things happen to us. We actually have a natural fight or flight response that occurs. And I've always prided myself on fighting, and not physical fighting. I'm not talking about that, but fighting for what you believe in, fighting for what's important to you. Where did that stem from? Where did that come from you?
I mean, for me, I've always kind of had a good work ethic.
Okay.
It's a lot to say like nowadays. I mean, I don't really see a lot of people being challenged a lot. Especially in this industry, everybody's got their own things that they're working against. But for me, the challenge is always just trying to just beat the last problem that I had. And I'm more of a solutions guy. anytime I have an issue, I have to like think out the whole scenario. And sometimes I overthink, and sometimes that's my downfall. But the thing is for me, not gonna I'm not gonna lose. That I think that's kind of like what I'm trying to just make sure that I keep myself in check with is you know to stay self-employed is my challenge, and it's my goal, to save people money in whatever way I can. I think that comes naturally because my prices are always cheap. And then when you're being proactive, you just got to really know your business. I mean, if you're not paying attention every penny that goes in and out, that's a problem right there, because anybody that has a business needs to know where they stand at all time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a new customer. I'm walking into your location. Tell me what that experience is like.
Well, if you're walking in my location, that means that the doors are open and they shouldn't be. So
We like that.
we
Okay.
shut down again. So we're by appointment only. We are going to try to do like a open house sale like once a month maybe.
Okay.
But if you walk in, it's weird because a lot of our existing customers, we've changed so much. Every time they walk in, they're confused because they're like, wait, you're still here? Are you still here? Aren't you still
Sure.
here? Are you leaving? What are you doing now? And then when we talk about the auctions, they go on there. Next thing you know it, I see them on my appointment list because they won some bids on some items at, a very good price.
Sure.
So that's
Sure.
how that conversation's been going lately.
Okay. Well, where do you find folks? Are there different ways that you are getting out there? Like how do you let people know what you're doing? You say it's by appointment only. How do people get to know to make that appointment?
So, we'll put marketplace ad up, like, or not ad, but a post. We did bring in some patio furniture recently, and it's actually probably about a third or a fourth of what you would spend on the retail. So generally speaking, that's going to drive traffic. We have the group of 9,000 people that or 9,000 plus. That's going to get the exposure
Yep.
of the people coming in. And then
Sure.
I have been using Nextdoor. We did have the Shaw update on our kind of like a follow up from our last. We had like when we were closing, they did a story. So now we're kind of like we're open again. So she kind
Nice.
of followed up on that, and then basically, I mean, that's really all I've been doing. I haven't really been. I mean, we have the Facebook ads, obviously. We have a page and we have a group. So
Okay.
the group is private to keep kind of the scammers out, and then
Good.
the page is more public. So that's where you're going to make your post with your reels, and then you can promote with the ads with that, and then you also next door, that's a way to do it. I'm just talking like from a reseller's aspect of it, but that kind of gives you an idea. A lot of people try LinkedIn, because that's more professional part of it. We don't really do the LinkedIn. I mean, the TikTok, we used to do that a lot. But the thing is, for me, whatever you hit, you just have to hit it with offering somebody a benefit for watching it or whatever. So like part of my business is helping other resellers. So there's a reseller plug in there where somebody can come to my site, and then there's kind of like a back way in there with keywords to get people that way. It's so many things, and then just obviously make sure that your Google's up to date with all that. So yeah, I mean that would be kind of like my start.
Okay. And I know that my wife is actually on the board at the Algonquin Lake and Hill Chamber. Right? You also you're affiliated with the chamber as well. Is that correct?
So I'm on the chamber, but again, my time, I feel really bad because I mean we try to, whenever there's like an event, sometimes we were giving out promotion items, for them to do the raffles or whatever. Any existing time that I have, it really has to be making sure that I mean because I have payroll still. I have one person on payroll, so
Okay.
every day that I'm working, I have to be kind of like in sell mode, responding to messages, and I would love to have another event here. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just honestly, I forget that I'm part of the chamber, and I see the post, and I do like their post too, and that's about as far as it goes. But that's a big thing too. Is I know I wasn't talking about the chamber, but being at the events, being in front of other business owners, it depends on your business. For me, mine's more customer based, so my customers don't really show up at chamber meetings. But to me, I think the biggest thing is just being aware of who else can be in your circle.
I know time's valuable for all of us, but we've certainly found a lot of value in the cup of joes that you're mentioning, ribbon cuttings. They'll have happy hours and so on and so forth. One thing hopefully that you will just continue to just remember is even if you're not meeting somebody that might not be a customer for you, you might meet somebody that will know somebody that could potentially be a customer for you. Anyways, it's cool that you're part of the chamber because there is some value there. Please tell me. I'm sitting there staring at you, and I'm a Chicago Bears fan. So if I had an animal behind me, it would probably be a bear. But you've got this. I don't know if it's Simba or what, but you've got yourself a nice little lion there. Can you tell me? Can you tell me why you got yourself a pretty cool looking lion behind you right now, Joedy?
It's actually an oil painting. So
Okay.
and it's more of a vintage. So that was one of my I actually went out to Cincinnati and met with a YouTuber that is a reseller out there, and he's got a pretty big channel. And
Okay.
this was just one of the items that I walked away with, and I thought it was cool. And at the
It
time,
is
I was
cool.
starting my business, and with the reselling. And in the beginning, I actually looked out to a lot of the people reselling on and having a YouTube show talking about, like, their challenges and stuff like that. So I kind of look up to a couple of those guys. There's actually a guy in Crystal Lake that's got a pretty big YouTube channel. I'm at the
Okay.
Trading Post. Pete, he's a nice guy. And a lot of those people I look up to, because when I started in kind of getting, back into the eBay and the reselling, it was just good to see that those guys had the same type of pain points that I did, and all the same kind of finds, and finding all the treasures and stuff like that. So that's kind of like where this one came from. And so
Nice.
now it's kind of been with me. So, and
I
then I,
love it.
I keep it right above me just to remind me, like, where I started.
I love it. Well, you're the king of your own discounting jungle, aren't you, Joedy? There is, when you've explored so much about what you do. You've explored so much about some of the challenges that you're experiencing. I will tell you, I very much respect the fact that you're staying strong through all this. You've gone through a lot of ups and downs, and your perseverance is a quality in people that I value quite a bit. And to say that you're persevering as best as you possibly can would be an understatement. I want you to think back, though. You've been doing this for a little while. You're obviously extremely passionate about what you do. Can you tell me about a feel-good story of somebody that you have been able to help, that, in the down times and in the days that maybe are a little cloudy out there, that still kind of brighten your day and make you feel good about what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I personally believe in. I don't donate a lot of money. I don't hand out a lot of money to homeless people. But what I do is I try to get onto their level on a true, like, I can help you through any struggle. And a lot of times I would get people that you can tell when they want to get something for their house, or maybe somebody came in and you can tell that they got a couple kids. And one time we were selling food, so I would hand people an extra bag of cereal, or just
Nice.
I would do it on a personal level, on a one-on-one level, and I wasn't trying to get a reaction. I was more of try, hey, I kind of feel something, going on here. Maybe the money's tight. Let me just, either knock a little bit off. Sometimes I've been known to just hand people extra things. It really depends. But if somebody comes up to me and they ask for a handout and do it in a way where they're just expecting it, I kind of shut down. And being in a discount store, I could tell you right now that that's almost an everyday occurrence. So you got to kind of understand that those are the people that are just trying to get a piece of you for no reason. But then there's all other people that walk in, and you can feel that, they might be struggling a little bit. They don't say it, but you can feel it. So then, maybe somebody, at one point would come in, and I would just on a level that, on a human level, I would help them out. So
Yeah, it's really beautifully. I became very friendly when I was doing some things downtown for a while there, and I would always see this one homeless person, and so much so that he was always asking me for cash and stuff like that. But I actually sat down with him and I talked to him for a little bit, and I've known others that have experienced this as well. And some people obviously are downwritten because of different issues that have occurred and stuff like that. But you really humanize people when you can really try to do something good for someone. And I know for myself, when my wife and I go out to eat at maybe an area that's a little more downtrodden, I love not finishing my meal and walking by and seeing somebody that's asking for help, and instead I just give them the food I have, the leftovers and the doggy bag and stuff. There's a lot of value with that, and it is cool, and and to also try to. I understand that it's tough when people come in because you don't know where their heart really is at, right? You don't know what their intentions really are, but to kind of see that you're providing such value is it's a beautiful thing, Joedy. And kudos to you for acknowledging that and seeing that. Where did this desire come from? Like who led you down the vintage road, man? Like where did this all start from?
I mean, I'm almost 50 years old, so obviously back then it was a different time. Computers, weren't I mean, early teens, I was always like, Hot Wheels, micro machines. I was more of a car guy, not really
Okay.
sports.
Okay.
Video games, a little bit nostalgic. Nostalgic is where it's at. I think that's things that bring me back to, like the good old days when, we didn't have the cell phones and, the kids, Saturday morning was the cartoons, the cereal, and then you would go out and grab your bike. And then sometimes we would ride up to the mall, from, 15 miles away and, swim in the pools. That was the day. So anything that can bring me back to that time, because now just everything's such a race and everybody's just, all about the money and, there's no really heart behind a lot of these businesses are out there taking advantage of people and, corporate world. And, it's just, everybody's a number, not a person. And to me, that's kind of like, I just kept that along my whole life. And anytime I see something that reminds me of that, but then it started turning into something where, you know, you can attach a dollar amount to it or you can collect it and just, I just had something that I held on for, about a year and a half and it went up in value. And then a customer walked in and right before he was actually walking in, thinking that we were open and walking around and seeing what was going on. He's like, "Hey, do you have any cards?" And I had like a Pokemon set, like a really rare, ultra rare that I got in one of my truckloads. And I said, "You know what? I got something," because he was talking about how it's his son's birthday, and he was out on the hunt for something, right? So I'm like, "You know what? You're not going to believe what I'm going to bring over here." And
Right.
he, sure enough, when I brought it to him, he's like, "I have never seen that before." And we did comps on eBay, and I said, "I'll tell you what, 20% of last sold average on eBay. I'll hook you up." It was actually really expensive, and basically the guy he shot me an offer which less, and I said, "You know what? It's for a birthday. It's for your kid. This is something that you guys will never find if you walk out my door, and here you go." And he paid up for it, and I could have just left it in the back and just said, "You know what? This is mine." And the guy he asked the right question as I was walking from the back to the front of the store. I saw that he was in my store. He shouldn't have been there, and it was kind of like he was lucky. He hit me at the right spot, and those are the kind of things I'm telling you. Like I kind of felt like I know exactly what this guy's looking for right now, and from me to him, that's how it went. So
That's beautiful. I'd already referenced this to you, but I've got a couple of years on you, quite frankly, if you're saying that you're almost a certain number. But I also had my wife's a couple of years younger than me, shall we say. But I also enjoyed the times when we were kids and there was no cell phones. And I would go out and you're talking about riding bikes. I'd ride bikes with my friends. I'd stop in for meals. And then, when the street lights came on was when I had to come back inside. And I harbor back to those days as well. And I'd shared with this too as well. I also enjoy sports card collecting. I know that's not your pivot point here, but I don't collect anything new. I collect everything back to when I was a kid and what I enjoyed when I was younger. And there's something to that, what it sort of makes you feel like when you're around that stuff. So I can understand your passion for vintage. I think actually I share that quite a bit more with you than maybe you knew before we started this whole thing. But I think that's really cool, Joedy. I will also say just really quick before we start and end this thing up, I've known a lot of Joes in my life. I've known a lot of Josephs in my life. I've known a lot of Joeys in my life. You are the first Joedy, Joedy, that I've ever met. Is there a story behind that name? Is that a family name? And were people trying to mess around with you? Is your actual name like Joseph, like Dykstra, and you're just like shoved it together? Or where'd that come from, Joedy? I love it.
yeah, so my parents actually made it so if I wanted to drop the DY and just be plain Joe. So sorry, no pun intended.
I love
So, but I never dropped it. So there.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
love it.
I felt it going up, and stuff, and yeah, it wasn't fun. But you know what? It is what it is, and that's what makes you stronger. There was a lot of people that if that's the way that they got to act to somebody, I mean, so be it. I don't look at that part of it, but yeah, it is kind of oddball name, and um, you know, other people that I know they have kind of names. I have a hard time pronouncing their names, and they have a hard time pronouncing my names. It's kind of a wash.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I'll be honest. I tell this to my wife all the time. When I met Neha, I'd never met another Neha before, but I've met thousands of Joes in my life, thousands of Josephs, thousands of Joes, right? So I've always actually been very, I've looked up to people like you and my wife that have these like individualized names, but I also can tell you and understand I was also a kid and kids can certainly be playful, I guess is the nicest way to put it, shall we say. But you also have to realize when you think back to a lot of those circumstances, there's probably some things happening in those kids, maybe houses and whatnot that they were dealing with that made them want to, go ahead and maybe not be so warm and fuzzy to people. But I think it's cool, Joedy. So don't change it, man. And don't take out the DY. Then it's Joe interviewing Joe, and there's no fun in that at all.
It's already there.
Is there anything else you wanted to mention? I mean, you've done a really wonderful job sort of talking about your business, talking about why you're passionate about what you're doing, talking about the ways that you've had to pivot, talking about how you had to adapt, being proactive, and talking about how you're able to accumulate things, how you're able to sort of start those connections, and then where that passion for vintage came from. But is there anything else you wanted to mention before we get before we end up here?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we touched on a lot of stuff. I think the biggest thing is just you know when you're doing something right. I know mine's still going, but right now I'm still kind of just feeling like it's still going to work. But my advice is to anybody else that, you start getting into a struggle, make sure that you know what's going on with your business, because at any time when you have these challenges, you can push through them, but then sometimes that's not the right way to do it. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out, so the challenge is always going.
Yeah. And inevitably, that's just life, right? I mean, things happen. We gotta figure it out. I so much want to tell you that my wife and I are going to support your business. We're going to make an appointment. I didn't know I couldn't just walk in there, so thank you for letting me know that.
For the auction,
and please, if you see any sports cards in any of your things along the way, realize that you've got somebody here that might want to take a look at those. But appreciate you, Joedy, being so honest. Appreciate you being so eloquent, telling your story. Appreciate the smiles. Appreciate that lion picture behind you. That's pretty cool. I'd probably hang that by me too if I had that. But thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, just remind me next time I see you, ask me about my Jordan poster I got.
I will.
Yeah, I sit in my office and it might be waiting for you. So.
Right on. I will do so. If I could ever get something more of the goat, I always will.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Joedy. You have a great day, okay?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
You got it.